Welcome to Wines and Wonders with Kirsten Fox. True stories with a side of wine. Looking for inspiration for your life and your wine glass? This is your podcast. Here's Kirsten.
So excited to have you here. Each season on Wines and Wonders, we explore a genre of true stories or stories based on history with a wine paired to it. This season, you're hearing stories about my own life that I call beyond coincidence. These situations have happened to me, and they indicate that there's a higher power watching over me and guiding me. That's the way I take them. I don't know if you've ever been delivered any of these helpful messages from seemingly other sources. As a survivor of a plane crash, cancer, a child with cancer, 2 divorces, I feel like I have fine-tuned my awareness of these universal power messages because it seems like I always need them to keep me going. And then as an executive sommelier in my professional life, I can't help but pair wines to these stories. I've even paired wine to laundry, but that's a whole nother podcast subject. So today's show is called Unexpected Whisper. About 15 years ago, I went to a seminar that was called The Awakening. And it was one of those new agey kind of woo-woo things where, you're going to explore some of your hidden challenges and possibly bring to light things that are holding you back. The room leader or the leader of the group brought us together, and there were maybe 50 or 60 people in the room. And we all sat down, and there were people there from all walks of life. Young, old, different styles of dress, tattoos, dreads, people that looked like they should be on as a news anchor, perfect hair and everything. And it was just an interesting group of people from everywhere. I listened to the leader as he led us in kind of the first welcome meditation, and then he talked to us about all the exercises that we were going to do. And so we started doing some of these exercises, some of which you're going to laugh at. I mean, things like, what color are you in your soul? Those kinds of things. But I really do love this stuff. So anyway, as we're wrapping things up, it's about 2 hours into it, and the group leader calls us back to our seats because we've been off in small groups, and he says he's going to lead us on a guided meditation. So I love that because I don't know about you, but when I'm trying to do my own quiet meditation, I mean, it's literally like going to a hard workout class. I have to concentrate. I have to really apply and not think about things and try to keep my mind empty and open and all that. And it's really, really challenging. So when someone says they're going to guide me in a meditation, I know I'm going to have a chart, a place, like a map to go on with this person. So I really appreciate that. So he said, sit with your feet on the floor and your hands on your thighs and your back to the back of the chair and close your eyes. So I did that. And he said, I want you to go to your special place. You're there all alone and really sink in and dive into this special place. So for me, my special place is this gorgeous, small beach cove on an island somewhere with the turquoise water and the gentle lapping of the waves coming in, not heavy waves, just light waves, white sand, and then that perfect, 2 or 3 palm trees that lean over and give a little shade to the beach. And so I just, that's my special place. And so I was there, I'm sitting there, he's talking to us about being in our special place. And then he says, in the distance, you see someone walking towards you. And so far off on the beach, I saw this person walking toward me, and he said, and as the person gets closer, you realize this is your God self. This is your representation of the perfect you. And I'm seeing her walk toward me. And of course, since we're on a beach, she's in this Fabu two-piece, rock solid body. She's been working out, you can tell. Perfect hair, white teeth, a little tan, but not too tan. I mean, she looked great. And she's walking toward me. And he said, your God self comes to you and he looks at you lovingly and begins talking to you. Listen to what your God self wants you to hear. So, okay, I sat there and she took my hands in hers and looked me deeply in the eyes. And she started to say things that were insanely trite. I mean, like, what? She's going, you're the best mom. You're such a good wife. You do the best you can at making healthy food for your family. All these things. And I'm like, thank you. I mean, I was so disappointed and I'm just sitting there like, oh my gosh, rolling my eyes. And, she continues on with, you're such a nice person to all your friends. And I'm like, I can't wait for this to be over. And then she drops my hands and she looks over both shoulders like she's making sure we're alone. And she leans into me with her hand cupped over the right side of her mouth, like you used to do in elementary school when you're going to tell a secret. And she leans in and she says, there's still time. And I opened my eyes. I was so shocked. And I closed my eyes again. And he, at this point, had started to kind of bring us out of this guided meditation. And I was so shocked to hear this statement from this God self who was me that wasn't trite and wasn't this stuff that you read in the chiropractor's office when you're sitting there waiting for your appointment. I mean, it went to my soul. And I've never been the same. I've never been the same. Every time something would happen to me, every time that a challenge would come into my life, I had this deep, amazing knowing that there was still time. And as the group leader in this program asked us for feedback, I raised my hand at one point and he brought me up to the front of the room and asked me what had happened. And I explained. I was literally a little bit in shock. And he said, wow, he said, so what is there still time for? And he's like, let's talk about that. And he goes, tell me what occurs to you that there's still time for. And I was like, well, still time to be a better person, still time to exercise more. And he looked at me, he's like, no, what's there really time for? And as a mom with 3 kids, married at that time, I looked at him and from like deep in my belly, I said, there's still time. It's choking me up here. There's still time to be true to myself. And he said, that's it. That is it. And I mean, the room erupted in this spontaneous clapping because I think all of us can take something from that message that I heard that day. And I've brought it along with me, as I said, on so many of my rides in life. And it is always something that comforts me and allows me the space to feel like I'm not drowning and there is still time. There's still time to be true to yourself. There's still time to be true to myself.
Stay tuned to hear what type of wine Kirsten will pair with this story right after this.
Today's podcast is brought to you by my company, Uplift Gift, when words aren't enough. When I had cancer, friends sent me the most amazing, wonderful gifts and cards. And they were from their hearts, and they made me feel so comforted and loved. And at the time, I was writing a column for the Huffington Post on wine pairings called Wines to Pair with Life. And so I wrote a series of articles about wines to pair with breast cancer. So in my public in the public, purview, people started contacting me saying, what should I send my friends? What were the best gifts when someone gets bad news? And finally, I just heard, this message that said, this is what you need to do, Kirsten. This is your gift out of your cancer that you can give the rest of the world. So the company, again, is Uplift Gift. And we help you support your friends and loved ones who may be far away from you, who just are getting a divorce or are dealing with a parent dying or are struggling with a new diagnosis. I realized people need help talking to others who've been given bad news. Since I've been through that experience quite a few times in my life, I feel like the Uplift Gift series of gift boxes are a perfect fit to help you support your friends. Uplift Gift, when words aren't enough.
Next up, Kirsten's choice for a wine to open after the show.
Thank you so much for hanging out with me today. If you missed the first segment, I talked about a guided meditation where I was surprisingly told by my God self the quote, "There's still time." And now we're into the segment where I'm going to pair a wine to this story. I can think of a perfect wine to pair with this phrase, "There's still time." There must be a wine that can hang out for a long time. Waiting, it's not a wine that is gonna, need to be consumed immediately. This is a wine that can wait for you. And before I name it, let's talk a minute about what makes a wine worthy of aging. Most of the wines, can I say hallelujah here? 95% of the wines that are in the liquor store are intended to be opened immediately. No waiting, just buy it, chill it if it needs to be chilled, and open it when you're ready. Thank goodness. But there are some wines that taste better after they sit in the bottle for a while. And sometimes for a long while. I mean, we're talking years, if not hundreds of years. No kidding. There's going to be one at the end of this that's going to be better after 100 or 200 years for your great-great-grandchildren to enjoy. Now, these are wines that are high in acidity, which is that crispness in wine, acidity, sugar, tannin, which is that grippy compound in wine, or alcohol. These are the components that act as preservatives when they're in the wine they're aging. And I'm not going to go into all the details about why these things help preserve the wine, these four components, but I can give you an example, and it's strawberries. Let's look at strawberries. If you've got too many strawberries out of your garden and you need to preserve them, one of the first things you will think of doing is adding sugar and making some kind of a jam from your strawberries, because sugar will act as a preservative and keep those strawberries from molding and going bad. So that's an example of how these four components help the wine be preserved. So you've got to have at least one, but preferably a couple of those four components: acid, sugar, tannin, and alcohol in the wine. And then taking it another step further, you want to go and find a producer of wine that is really in the game for the long haul. It's someone who understands enology and someone who can put together a wine that is balanced and beautiful in the bottle, that can sit there for a long time. It's a little bit like a designer clothing company. You know that they're going to make those seams of their, the jacket you're buying, those seams are going to be firmer, sturdier. That jacket that you are putting down some good money on is going to last for a long time. which is the same thing. That care of the designer clothing manufacturer is going into that piece of clothing, just like the care of a quality producer is going to go into that wine. So let's talk about what type of wines are good for aging, and then I'll give you my selection. So aging wines, which ones have the great bones to be ready to sit around? Now, these are generalities. You obviously have to pay attention to the producer as well. But here's the list. For reds, so get your pen out. For reds, and these can last 15 to 20 years if they're well made. The ones to look for are Nebbiolos, wines made from Nebbiolo. These are made in Italy, and they are called, on the label, it will be called a Barolo or a Barbaresco. So those are great wines to look for. Another one would be called it's made from the Sangiovese grape out of Italy, and it will be called a Brunello. A Brunello wine. Then you can also look a little closer to home, Cabernet Sauvignon from Napa, from quality producers, and then ending up with two other wines, a Tempranillo from Ribera del Duero in Spain, solid Tempranillo from Ribera del Duero in Spain, or finally a Pinot Noir, a red Burgundy from the Burgundy region of France. So that's our reds. Now for the whites, these are going to last somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 years or so. And I would start with a white from Rioja. That's a Spanish region. So a white from Rioja. An oaked Chardonnay, like some from Napa or Burgundy. So oaked Chardonnays from Burgundy or Napa. Or Bordeaux in France has blends of Semillon and Sauvignon Blanc, and those can last about 10 years as well. Okay, let's move into the third category of wine, and then we're going to go into the last one, fourth category, and then I'll give you my pick. The third category is sweet wines. Now, these are mostly dessert wines. They have a lot of sugar in them. These can last 25 years or more. These are very long-lived wines. There are two that I would pick out. One is Recioto della Valpolicella from Italy. Recioto della Valpolicella from Italy, and a Sauterne from France, from the Bordeaux region. Sauterne, super high sugar, but also super high acid. These are made to last. For the last category of wine, which would be fortified wines, this is the wine that can last 200 years or more. And there are two that I would select for this category. One is a tawny port, well-made tawny port, can last hundreds of years, and a Madeira, spelled Madiero. Madeira. And that's from the south. It's kind of off the coast of Africa, and it's labeled Madeira, and they can last for 200 years or more. So there we are on the generalities. Now, my choice for the wine that I would pair with the phrase, "There's still time," I'm choosing a bottle of Inglenook Estate Cabernet from the Napa Valley in California. This is a winery that has proven over 100 years that it cares about its wines and creating long-lived wines. And that Cabernet will be able to sit there for a good 10 to 20 years and just get better as it ages. That's it for today's show. I really appreciate you listening to me chat about this hopeful message, and I hope that you take from it, as I have, the message that there is still time for all of us to live our true selves, or to do what we feel we need to do to offer to humanity our gifts that we were born with.
We look forward to sharing a new story and wine with you next time. Thanks for tuning in to Wines and Wonders.